What's up, I'm Drew. This is my HESI video for the implicit bias test and the podcast that we listen to about implicit bias. So I'm just going to first talk about really my thoughts about the test and the podcast. So the podcast was really interesting because it really showed so many different perspectives and just so many different people that have this implicit bias in them. And it just shows that it's in everybody, and it's not something that is wrong with us. It's not something that we did wrong growing up. It's just something that's in our society and that affects everyone. And it kind of makes people more comfortable, and it made me more comfortable knowing that it's not just me or my friends that have these implicit biases, but it's people from all different walks of life that really have this thing in them that we don't like and that they don't like and that they want to change. And the test kind of really surprised me because for the race one, it actually said that I was more prone to be comfortable with Black people, which is something that I didn't expect because I grew up in a community that was mostly white. My high school was 80 to 85% white. So I would think, and most people would think, that I would have been more comfortable and more prone to white people, but my test results came out the exact opposite. So what this shows is that the implicit bias test, it's definitely not foolproof. You might have implicit biases even taking the test and try to skew your results just because you don't want to be racist. But that's not what this test is about. It's just about self-acknowledging and self-knowing that you have this thing in you and you have to be aware of it. And that's where it comes in with leadership. It definitely affects leadership. Implicit bias 100% does this because as a leader, you have to know that you have these implicit biases to make sure you can be the most effective leader that you can, because without knowing this, you might make rash decisions just based on color, ethnicity, class, just all these different ways you could judge people without even knowing it because you have this implicit bias. And how this really affects us in class, knowing that everybody in our class has this implicit bias is definitely something that can comfort us and can just be discussed, because we all have these implicit biases and we all have to acknowledge that we have them, and just know that we have to try to be better people and try and not judge and think of people on what race they are, the class, their gender, all those things. We have to think of people for their personalities and just accept everyone for who they are, and just know that we have these implicit biases and that we do have to deal with them and not just throw them away and put them in the back of our minds. We have to acknowledge this and deal with it as a class.